Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. We've got Madhura and Bich, and we're going to be talking about Arlon, which is a new project, and we'll be talking about ArgoCon and seeing how that went. We'll give everybody about a minute or two to join just because we just started, make sure everything's working and there's no issues on any of the channels. But I guess we can, I'll ask a basic question first. How was ArgoCon? So we'll see, we'll ask Madhura first and then we'll ask Bich.
Yeah, ArgoCon was great. I think I was sharing mic with you and some others at Platform 9 as well. What I personally felt is sometimes when you go to these larger conferences like the AWS conference that happens annually, or even KubeCon at this point because it's grown so big, sometimes the focus on a specific problem and a specific project or a set of projects to solve them gets lost because of the broader area of topics to cover, and then you feel that at the conference in terms of the conversations, etc. So ArgoCon is still extremely small, extremely focused, and it benefits from that because everybody is there because they're specifically interested in solving problems around CI/CD pipelines, continuous deployment, GitOps, using Argo CD project or similar projects. And so the conversations were very specific to the point and relevant. And so I really enjoyed the experience.
So it's a lot more focused, and y'all have been focused pretty much on Argo CD and Arlon for so long. It was nice to be able to talk about it, I'm sure, finally, with people that would be super interested. All right, how about Bich? How was your experience? Did you you have about the same experience, or?
Yeah, I got a really good vibe from the conference and the users and the people I met there. It reminded me very much of the first VMworld that that I went to, and also some of the first KubeCons. I think I went to the second KubeCon ever, and I had that same vibe, same experience. You know, a lot of practitioners as opposed to business people. Very good foot traffic and great questions and great conversations and great talks as well.
Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the meeting our guests. So since I got Madhura on the top left, I'll start with Madhura. So what was your first job in tech, and what led you to product over engineering? Like, where did you start engineering and then move over to product, or like, what's your background?
Yeah, so yes, I started on engineering side, spent several years of my career, my early career on the engineering side before switching to product management. I think what really got me started, my first tech job was my internship at Microsoft as part of doing my master's in computer science. When I did my undergrad, there really weren't any specific internships that I got a chance to pursue. So my real world job experience was that, and it was really, really fantastic experience. Just the whole being on site at Microsoft Seattle headquarters, and got to learn a lot from there. In terms of switching to product management, I really switched to product management when we started Platform 9. I had a lot of interfacing with product management before as part of my role at VMware. Also had a ton of interface with enterprise customers, VMware's enterprise customers. VMware was blessed with a very, very strong, very vocal and active community of users and customers that we, even as engineers, got a lot of exposure to. So had a lot of experience there, but really switched to product management as we started Platform 9. And it completely consumed, feel extremely passionate about, just the overall field of product management at this point. I could talk more about that, but that's really my journey.
Well, awesome. Yeah, I'll ask more about that in a minute. So what about you, Bich? What was your path to chief architect, and what does that look like? Were you a software developer before? Were you infrastructure architecture? What did you do, and how did you get to the chief architect role?
Well, the chief architect role, that was easy because I'm a co-founder of Platform 9 along with Madhura, Rupak, and Suresh. And when we start a company, as founders, we ask ourselves, okay, what titles should we give ourselves? Because you kind of have to write that on a piece of paper. So I ended up with the chief architect simply because maybe it wasn't taken and it sounded cool. So, but more seriously, if you're asking me about my background, so I work on container management right now. Before this, I spent a long time at VMware working on virtualization, and before VMware, I worked at HP on a precursor to virtualization, which was dynamic binary translation. So it seems like I was destined to do this kind of stuff. If you really want to know how I started my career, that was I was still in high school, and I started writing video games. So
Well, awesome. I'll ask you about that at the end. Then we'll see what your first video game was. All right, so let's get to the.
I just want to interject here. I think Big is definitely very modest, but he was one of the principal engineers at VMware. One of the earliest employees, and grew to be principal. Contributed to a lot of early innovation that happened at VMware, right? So lots of great achievements on his shoulder before he even started with Platform 9 with us.
Awesome. So that'll bring us right into what this new project is. What is Arlon? Whichever of you want to start out with it, you can go for it. And then I'll get
I think Big should kick it off. This is, he's the key architect for Arlon, and so he can articulate it very well.
Yeah, and what I can say is I can talk about Arlon, the inception and the technology behind it, but it was really, it's an evolution of an initiative that we started at Platform 9 called Profile Engine. And Profile Engine was built and created in response to very insightful customer input that Madhura and her product management team gathered from many users. And maybe she can talk about kind of the business and the problem there that we were trying to solve. But if I were to summarize what Arlon is, well, first of all, it's an open source project. It's a tool that builds on other very popular tools that include Argo CD, Cluster API, and Crossplane. And let me try to summarize it first, and then we can dive into the details. But it's trying to help platform engineers and IT administrators manage and deploy Kubernetes clusters along with the content that goes into clusters, such as applications, configurations, add-ons. And Arlon tries to do that in a really simple way and unified way, but also scalable way. So that's very useful when you have when you reach a certain level of scale, like 10, 20, or hundreds of clusters, hundreds of applications, thousands of users. That's kind of the long-term vision, right? And we want to do all of this on the great pillars of GitOps, Kubernetes, declarative APIs, and I would be really passionate and talk to you about each one of those in more detail. But that's kind of the big picture.
So what's the product upsell, Madhura?
I think Big set the right building blocks, the foundation for it. That's exactly what Arlon is meant for. If you look at from the business pain point perspective, right? So we, as part of being part of the Kubernetes community, being one of the providers of a Kubernetes distributed platform for hybrid cloud management, right? We get a chance to talk to a lot of customers that run Kubernetes at scale, either using your on-prem infrastructure or public cloud. Public cloud's native Kubernetes offerings, as well as using public cloud just as an IaaS layer. And so as the I usually like to look at it on this axis with the left-hand side, or the x-axis, showing you the number of nodes and clusters that you have under your management, and the y-axis shows the distribution factor, which is how distributed is your infrastructure. Is it all consolidated in one data center or spread across the geography? And as you start scaling across both these axes, there is a lot of potential chaos that can get generated if you don't have well-structured management products, platforms, stories around how to curtail the sprawl of the nodes and the clusters, and manage all of the associated operations in that context, such as being able to provision those clusters really fast, being able to update them when security CVEs come out, or upgrade them. being able to control the blast radius of a particular operation, being able to roll back and revert to a previous good state fast. So all of these good principles, need to be executed, not just at your app level, but at your cluster and infrastructure level as well. And if you look at, Argo CD, we're huge fans of it. We make big use of it as part of Arlon. Historically, these CD tools have addressed the app portion of that problem very well, which is once you have your cluster and infrastructure up and running, then you have lots of really advanced features, capabilities in a tool like Argo CD, for example, for managing the blast radius of the apps, deploying them in an automated way, doing all of that through GitOps, right? So what we do at Arlon, the business problems we saw was that the similar problems exist for cluster and infrastructure management first, and really end-to-end management, from soup to nuts, which is starting all the way from your infrastructure to then your clusters, to then your infrastructure plugins that the apps rely on, to then finally your business applications. So Arlon lets you do a GitOps-based infrastructure as a code management of everything, right? And it's highly customizable, highly pluggable, because we want it to be very suitable for your environment as you being the large enterprise customer, and we know every customer environment is different. And so to the extent that it's able to do that, it helps customers solve some of their biggest pain points in terms of very efficient cluster update and upgrade management, good level of visibility and governance around across all of my clusters and infrastructure, what exactly is deployed, and if something changes, being able to diff across that and see what exactly changed, and then being able to correct it to the desired state. So using automation, using GitOps-based governance to bring a level of structure to that chaos.
Gotcha. So if I want to bring up a new developer quickly and I've templated out something for my developers, I can just spin up a cluster per each person. It might get expensive, but I could do that if I wanted to pretty easily. Or if I've got a new production setup that I want to do, I can template it out and just deploy it anywhere that I need it. That's what it kind of sounds like. Makes it a lot faster and easier to do that instead of being worried about them being at different states. All right. So you kind of already answered my question, but I don't know if you have any more comments, either of you, on why scale is so difficult. Like, I think Madhura kind of explained it and is managing all the pieces. I guess we'll kind of go and expand on what you just said too. Is what was the inspiration, Vic, for creating Arlon? So is that the problem that you wanted to solve, was being able to template out and scale things? Are there any aspirations for what you want to do next after you've already kind of worked on that? Like, what's the future?
Yeah, so the problem, I think Madhura spoke about it. It's a management at scale problem. It's a predictability of deployments. It's handling and avoiding configuration sprawl. So she and her team handed me kind of the problem statement, and I had to kind of choose the architecture and decide how we were going to solve this problem. And so that was my job, right, to really define this architecture. And what I did is I looked at the trends in the container orchestration and distributed application management space with Kubernetes. And we saw trends and innovations that we wanted to really take advantage of, right? And these include, obviously, Kubernetes, but more importantly, Kubernetes has brought the paradigm of declarative APIs for workloads, right? So the idea is you express what you want and the system figures it out, right? And you do it once. And in the background, there are these things called controllers, which will reconcile and converge your system to satisfy the state that you expressed. And Kubernetes is great for that, and it's great for workloads. And but that's not enough, because in the problem we want to solve, platform engineering teams, they want to manage application deployments, but they also need to create and tear down and upgrade clusters as well. And so we saw an opportunity to unify those two concepts, right? Managing applications and managing infrastructure and managing clusters. And it turns out that Kubernetes itself provides a solution for infrastructure management because it's so extensible. So you have these new projects like Cluster API and Crossplane, which allow you to express desired state for infrastructure using Kubernetes-style resources. And so we saw that opportunity. And in addition to all of this, GitOps is also emerging as a preferred way to apply these resource manifests on Kubernetes. And Argo CD is a great project. It's probably, we think it's the best GitOps tool out there. So we saw that these are all building blocks that could allow us to solve the business problem. But when I put all of those pieces together and I played with them and experimented with them, I still saw some problems. Arlon, I built Arlon on that architecture to solve that remaining 5 to 10% of those issues to make the experience really smooth for users. And so Arlon builds on top of those tools, but supplies additional automation to achieve end-to-end infrastructure and application and configuration deployment. And it also gives you abstractions to better manage hundreds or thousands of resources. And it does that by allowing you to group commonly used settings into, as Madhura said, templates, and also what we call profiles. So instead of having to deal with hundreds or thousands of manifests or resources, you'll have to deal with maybe a dozen, okay, depending on how many different combinations of configurations you want. So, so that's what Arlon brings to the table. That's how it's architected. It brings these abstractions and it layers on top of those existing tools.
We're going back to ArgoCon too. It sounds like others may have had similar ideas. So you got this out there and others are interested in it and they've been thinking about the same thing. So it sounds like it's on everyone's mind. So let's go to Madhura. What's the product side of that? So what do you see for the future of Arlon? Like what kind of problems are you going to try to solve with it, do you think, in the future?
Yes, I think, as we, talk about this growing scale, I think there's going to be a need for better or structured management, GitOps-based infrastructure as a code management of your apps and all parts of the infrastructure that goes under it at scale and in a multi-cluster manner, right? So that's one. And that talks about problems such as when we roll out applications, when we update them, there needs to be a standardized way of doing that. But there also need to be, governance and policies around if the app rollout fails, then what do we do? Do we roll it back or not? And so increasingly being able to templatize and codify policies around that, being able to define this is how I want my infrastructure to behave, means there is less number of manual steps that DevOps or ops people need to take on an ongoing basis, right? When they're updating an application or when they're triaging the rollouts or rollbacks or issues, etc. And that's really the future that we want to be a big contributor to, I think, using Arlon. We spoke about app level issues across, deploying these applications across multiple clusters. That's one. Similar issues arise as your blast radius increases because you have 50, 60 EKS clusters running, and your desire is to want to get to, say, 100 clusters. But now Kubernetes 1.24, has come out, and you want to update, your end state is you want to get all of those clusters updated to that version. With Arlon today, you could make a single change to that profile that applies to all of those clusters. And Arlon, when it will, in its auto sync mode, update all of those clusters and get them upgraded to that version, right? So that's very, very powerful automation right there that lets you do that at a very wide scale. But then as you start looking at enterprise problems or models, when they upgrade those clusters, they will not always want to update them in one shot, because there's a lot of risk in being able to or doing it that way. So then how would they truly want to attack it so that it's still automated but gives them enough controls and flexibility? Is there some batched, a percentage-based rollout model? Are there abilities to roll back certain upgrades or take actions if they don't work out? Are there abilities to do pre-checks? Those are the kinds of problems or umbrella of problems we want to be able to solve using Arlon and a variety of projects we want to create around it.
So why should I a user use this over something like Terraform? What value adds do I get? So you kind of explained that a little bit, but if you want to go into detail of this is better this way versus.
No, absolutely, and that's really the core use case we are looking to solve, right? Which is the users that we talk to that are interested in Arlon. They are solving these problems by building their own Terraform scripts today, right? So it's almost like if you think of, there's multiple such analogies in the world. There were before a number of problems that were previously solved using Excel spreadsheets, for example, as a generic tool. There are specific products like Jira and Confluence and others that were built to, for example, solve issue tracking that was done at times using Excel spreadsheets and etc. So, and this is in my mind a similar analogy, which is those problems are being solved using Terraform today, which is a very powerful, very generic tool for automating anything and everything, right? But we believe that Arlon will let you solve it in a more efficient manner, in a more standardized manner, using an open source project that's backed by us, and hopefully there's a community of users and contributors behind it. So when your specific Terraform scripts, the writers of those leave the organization, there isn't a burden of who's going to keep them up to date and updated. Essentially it frees your time from having to create these homegrown automations and lets you do that in a standardized way. And Arlon does auto reconciliation, right? With Terraform, you will have scripts to update your clusters, for example. But then what if someone went behind the scenes, and made a change to a cluster accidentally? Arlon will detect that and in fact even show you a diff of that. So it will have different mechanisms to highlight it, raise it to you. It may send you an event on your Slack channel. It may page you, things like that. These are all parts of things that we're working on as part of the roadmap of Arlon. That is only achieved through a well thought through, well defined product that addresses those specific key pain points.
Got any thing to add, Vic?
Yeah, I think a key principle to state here is, again, I go back to that declarative API paradigm, right? Platform engineers, DevOps engineers, automation engineers, they're growing up and they're joining the workplace, and they're learning. The way they're learning things these days is a lot of things are done with kubectl apply, right? Again, it's that fire and forget principle, and people, Kubernetes and Kubernetes style APIs. That's the new Linux, right? It's the way you get stuff done. And so, if I want to deploy a bunch of clusters, automate a bunch of things, and run my applications, why do I want to use a half dozen tools, right? If I can get everything achieved with kubectl apply and unify the whole experience and express my desired state with no ambiguity and know that it's going to be taken care of, as opposed to having to worry about step A, step B, execute step C, and sequencing things, then I think people are beginning to realize that there's a better way, and that declarative approach is better. And so that's Terraform is great. Terraform is still going to be widely used, but we feel that there is a better way to do infrastructure application update management using this declarative paradigm.
Awesome. All right, so someone's excited about Arlon, myself. How do I contribute? Can I contribute? This is an open source project, right? I'll link it on there. But are you looking for contributors? What are you looking for?
We're looking for contributors. We're looking for people to come and kick the tires, try it out, and give us input and feedback. And if users can contribute changes and enhancements, that would be even better. That would be awesome.
Awesome. You got anything to add, Madhura? Are you
No,
looking for
no,
contributors too?
100%. Yes, 100%. Specifically, as product manager, I'm definitely looking for feedback, positive, negative things that you would like to see done more in Arlon or umbrella projects around it. We absolutely want to hear that, and then 100% contributors.
That'll help inform some of the other features and stuff that we can add in the future. And we're getting through stuff so quick. I should have had more questions. So it sounds like Arlon makes it easier to manage infrastructure. I guess we can kind of talk about our platform too. Does it makes it easier to manage infrastructure in PMK, or is that coming? Or how does Arlon apply to our product? Since
Yeah,
Madhura
so
is
Arlon is, we've created it as an open source project, and it's important that we continue, for us, that we continue to build this out in a way that really helps the community. We want the community to benefit and engage with it. It's also going to be supported in Platform and Managed Kubernetes, which is the PMK product, as a built-in supported add-on, right? So in Platform and Managed Kubernetes, we have the concept of add-ons, and we deploy a number of popular, well-used CNCF projects, the common ones being Prometheus and Grafana or Fluentd, and Metal LB for your bare metal clusters, etc., as what we call fully managed add-ons, meaning they're not just apps in our catalog that you deploy, but they come with our complete SLA that we also provide as part of managed Kubernetes, right? So these add-ons are tested by us for version compatibility across various Kubernetes versions. We certify that they will deploy. There's a built-in UI that comes with those add-ons in Platform and Managed Kubernetes. And so you essentially get that royal treatment inside Platform and Managed Kubernetes for the add-ons that are shipped with it. And Arlon is one of the key add-ons in Platform and Managed Kubernetes, starting the 5.6 release, which is going out fairly soon, right? So what it means is it's going to be completely integrated, built in, provided as part of Managed Kubernetes. It integrates with Argo CD, which is also built into Platform and Managed Kubernetes, starting actually 5.5 or 5.4 releases. So Argo CD has become a key core component of Platform and Managed Kubernetes for a few releases now, and we're just going to continue to build on that. So any clusters created in Managed Kubernetes get automatically registered with Arlon and Argo CD, and then you can start creating profiles using Arlon CTL. There's an enterprise version of the CLI that gives you a slightly better experience in terms of just being able to get up and running with the Platform and Managed version of Arlon. But essentially, our roadmap is to always keep up with the open source development in making sure that the most recent open source version or the version before that is always integrated with our managed Kubernetes product, right? And there will be a set of enterprise features that will be provided as part of the overall managed Kubernetes offering on top of Arlon.
awesome. I'll show our Slack too. If you're interested in seeing a demo of any of this, or you want to see how Argo CD works hosted with our product, join us on Slack, slack.platform9.io, and you can reach out to me, and I can set something up at Petersen. All right, so let's go back to talking. Let me see what the next question is. All right, is there anything else that you want to add about Arlon before we maybe talk a little bit more about Argo CD and some hobbies or something else interesting either? Or we'll start with Bich. Bich, what is there anything else you want to share?
I want to kind of add some color to what Madhura said about what would a product version of Arlon look like. And one thing to understand is the Arlon stack is built on many components, as I explained earlier, and that's a lot of moving parts. And when you're just getting started, there is a number of steps you need to follow to configure things and get all the components talking to each other. The advantage of something like Arlon integrated with the Platform 9 product is you get that big stack, pre-configured, tested, configured, ready to go. So that's a big value, which is the case for most SaaS products that are built on open source. Another thing I wanted to mention was there's another side of the Arlon project that we haven't discussed yet. So Arlon, the core Arlon lets you manage, things like templates, profiles, and deployments, upgrades in a scalable way. We've talked about that. One thing we've learned is given that Arlon gives you a very good tool to bring up infrastructure and apply content to your clusters, we realized that the tools that we use, like Cluster API and Crossplane and the underlying cloud providers, the clusters that they give you are pretty much bare bones clusters. And to make your Kubernetes clusters useful and more production ready, it turns out you need to add a lot of stuff. You need add-ons. You need a bare minimum set of what I call middleware layers. Things like cluster auto scaling, a logging stack, a monitoring stack, and we
It's
realized
nice to have something opinionated. Opinionated installs that you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like for real instead of just basic, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and what we realize is people who need that stuff, and they can try to assemble those components themselves by going out and studying various open source projects and reading instructions and all that. But that's really painful, and getting it to work is really painful as well. So Arlon project, we said, okay, Arlon gives you a really great unified standardized way of deploying stuff, clusters and content and applications. And it's built on a set of industry standard tools and emerging innovations like GitOps. Why not supply some of those critical add-ons and middleware components to help people bootstrap their clusters into something that is truly useful, right? And so one example is, as I said, we found out that cluster autoscaler, the thing that expands or shrinks your cluster in response to application performance and load, that is notoriously hard to configure. And so we thought, let's since Arlon has this concept of bundles and profiles, why not include a bundle, an out-of-the-box bundle and profile for autoscaling? And then we did the same thing for monitoring stack. And so I think that's going to be an area of Arlon that's going to grow more and more into the future, and that is to help people bring up these production-ready clusters with the included but optional batteries that they may want to. And so that's also a part of the project that I'm pretty excited about.
Well, awesome. Hopefully we get to see some in-depth demos or something like that in video form here soon. Or if anyone's interested, reach out and we can probably set up a webinar or something like that to show a little bit more of it. How about you, Madhura? Do you have anything else to add before I ask you more about like product stuff?
No, I think Vic covered it pretty well.
All right, so let's go back to your product stuff. So now that we've talked about Arlon, let's learn a little bit more about y'all again. So what informs your decisions for features to add when working in products? As someone that's looking into getting into product and stuff like that, did the engineering background help you with a lot of ideas? Like what informs like stuff that you're getting added? Is it customer requests? Like you see customers having issues?
Yeah, I can go first on that. I think so. Definitely, I would say the space that we're in. I think to be an effective product manager, you have to be very curious about the underlying technology, right? It doesn't mean you absolutely must have an engineering background, but there needs to be a genuine level of curiosity, and having an engineering background definitely helps with that because there's a lot of constructs that just come very naturally to you. But you need to be curious enough to understand the product at a sufficient enough depth that you're able to hold meaningful conversations with engineers that are building it, but also DevOps folks, etc., that would be using it, right? So that's a very critical requirement to be effective as a product manager. I think in just this whole space around Kubernetes and the whole CNCF ecosystem. In terms of what informs product management decisions, I think I think Amazon, for example, has a philosophy around it. It's a very it's a commonly held one of the common models around product management, but Amazon specifically definitely talks about it, which is 90% of your ideas that you build in a product come out of direct feedback that comes from your customers. And as long as you're having very structured, active conversations with your customers where you're seeking that feedback out, asking them about their pain points, asking them to rate if there are different ways in which we were to address them, which would they find most appealing, etc. So these structured, regular customer feedback conversations can address 90% of what you build for your customers that will truly be valuable to them, right? And in most cases, I think product managers, and I've been part of that, guilty of that, is if they find themselves not being effective, is because they're not having enough of those conversations. I think 10% of the innovation comes out of what you do on behalf of the customers, which is you hear enough of their specific pain points and then you try to take them further a little bit and say, if we solved it this way, even though that the customer hasn't described that pain point today, it will still help. And so I think if you start by just really listening to the customers, then you would go very long way.
Awesome. All right, Bic, what are you excited about getting in the open source world? Are you excited about getting back? I think you've done some stuff previously, right? But are you excited about releasing this project into the world? Like, what are you most excited about with the open source work?
Yeah, I've contributed to open source in the past, but this is the first real project that not myself, but the team behind me and the team at Platform 9. At least it's one of my first ones that we built from scratch to be open source first. And so there's a lot of new things that we are learning. For example, managing our tickets and issues. We at Platform 9 we use the Jira system, but we had to learn to move all of our project planning and bug tracking to GitHub. And so it's been a fascinating journey. Yeah, and I'm really excited as well.
I'm excited too. Hopefully we see some more stuff about Arlon on the CNCF channel and everything coming up in the next couple of months. But I think that's about all that I have, unless either of you wants to add anything else, or come join us on github.com/arlonproj.or/Arlon for those that are just listening instead. I'll post it one more time up here. Check it out. It's also arlon.io. That might be easier to get to. Check it out, contribute, try it out. Let us know if you have any issues or if you need help with anything. We're around. And if either of you want to say bye or anything else, I think we've hit a pretty good point.
Yeah, I would just contribute that we are going to be at KubeCon. That's coming up in Detroit, right? And we will have some Arlon stickers and other material, additional potentially data sheets, etc., to give you more information on Arlon. But all the information is on the Git repo. But if you want to talk to any of us, set up either a private demo or just have a short one-on-one chat, please reach out to us, and we would love to connect with you in person live at ArgoCon.
You can reach out on LinkedIn too. Yeah, KubeCon.
Reach out on LinkedIn too. Yes, and we're going to have a booth, so that's another great place to just come visit us, and we can talk about GitOps, infrastructure as a code, Arlon, and everything else, and Argo City.
So I'm excited about the stickers. I don't even have one yet. I want to put one on my laptop. Like, it looks awesome. It's going to be the little logo you see in the bottom left of the stream. How about you, Vic? You have any parting words for us?
No, I think thank you everyone for joining us or watching us in the future. We're excited about this new project. I hope that you will be excited as well. And again, we would love to hear from you, your input, your feedback, and happy to take contributions as well in the future.
I said thank you both for taking the time and joining us and talking about the project. Hopefully we didn't go too deep. There's a lot of great information about it. But I guess we'll go ahead and end there, and we'll see everyone next week. Like I said, if you have any questions or anything like that, just post them on LinkedIn, join us on Slack, or just reach out. All right. Thank you.